Hi guys, welcome to or back to my channel. My name is Rachel. Today I want to go over some bookish questions with you guys. This is the end of the year book tag that Ariel has been making and answering for years. I will tag her down below. She is the co-host to the podcast Books Unbound, and I have been a fan of hers and Raylene's since I was in middle school and high school when I first found out about BookTube, and they're like my OG booktubers that I followed way back then. And they have an amazing podcast called Books Unbound, and that is where I got these questions from. So I just want to go through today and answer all those questions. It's kind of like, you know, you're wrapping up the year. What books do you want to finish before the end of the year? How has your reading been throughout the year? And just questions like that. So I thought it would be kind of fun to answer all of those in October, since we only have a few months left of the year. So let's just jump right in. So I have the questions down here on my laptop. So if I happen to glance down, that's why. But the first question is, are there any books you started this year that you need to finish? The only book that I feel like I've started that I need to finish is actually one that I just started in September. And that is Ruthless Fae, the second book in the Zodiac Academy series. I didn't put this down for any particular reason. I'm like 100-ish pages into this book. 175, almost 200 pages into this book, and I don't know, I felt like it just wasn't the right time. Like, there were so many other books that I wanted to read at the time, and then I still want to read more than this book. I do want to finish this book. Will I finish it by the end of the year? Maybe, but it's not like on the top of my list. Question number 2 is, do you have any autumnal books? Oh my gosh, gnats. Do you have any autumnal books that you would like to transition into the end of the year? These are 2 books that I definitely want to read for this season right now. Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas is about vampires and it takes place in Texas and Mexico. I think it definitely gives like that fall vibes. And then Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Aldree. I definitely want to read this, especially because next year the 3rd book is coming out, and I'm pretty positive this is a prequel to the first book, but again, super cute, cozy fantasy vibes, and I definitely want to read this year. Is there a new release I'm still waiting for? I don't think so. Okay, I lied. Actually, the 3rd book to this series comes out this year in November. So I guess that would be the book that I am anticipating. Probably the only one, because I feel like a lot of the other ones that I had been anticipating, like Catabasis, already came out. So I think probably that one. It's called Brigands and Bread Knives. So yeah, that one. Okay, I lied to you guys again. And only because I feel... Not on purpose, obviously, but I don't think I'll be reading this book this year. I do want to read it. I am excited for it, but the second book in the Fae and Alchemy series, so the first one is Quicksilver, and the second one is Brimstone. So I read Quicksilver earlier this year, loved it, I thought it was great. So Brimstone comes out in November as well. I knew it was coming out, but yeah, so... Okay, what are 3 books you want to read before the end of the year? So the first one is definitely Winded Truth by Brandon Sanderson. That is the 5th and so far final installation of the Storm Light Archive series. I already own the book. I bought it when it came out without having even read the first book, but thankfully I love the series, but it is a massive book. So I kind of get burnout when I read them back to back. But I will definitely read it before the end of the year. So that's one. And then I think the next 2 are also part of the series. So I definitely want to read Golden Sun by Pierce Brown for the end of the year. And I will probably read this either this month or next month in October or November. It's definitely like very, very high on my list. So I, for sure, I'm going to read it. Okay, and then the 3rd one, like I said, also part of your series. It's the 2nd book in the Sun Eater series by Christopher Rocchio. It's Howling Dark. So they're both sci-fi books. I don't know why, but this year sci-fi has just totally eclipsed like my entire reading. It just sucked me in and I'm happy about it. Like, it is so good. I love sci-fi now. I've always been like a sci-fi-ish, like adjacent person. I've always loved things like Doctor Who and stuff like that. So I've dabbled, been interested, but it's always been more like TV movie, not really book related. And so I'm definitely super, super excited that this year I got into it. 1 high fantasy and 2 sci-fis by the end of the year. Hopefully I get those done. So kind of on the same note, question number 5 is, what are trends that you've noticed in your reading? And I've definitely read a lot more sci-fi and high fantasy this year than I ever have. I've always been a fantasy person, but more like romantasy. Now I read more high fantasy and just like straight fantasy and more sci-fi. And I have been loving it. I have been enjoying it so much. And surprisingly, whenever I read this many books in a year, as of today, I've read, which is what, October 8th, I've read 71 books, which is the most books I've ever read in an entire calendar year. Previous to this, a couple years ago, I read 70 books. That was the most that I'd read at the time. I definitely know for sure I'm gonna surpass that because it's only October 8th. I don't know what happened, but this year I have not felt burnt out, or burnt out for that matter, reading this much, where normally I do. Normally when I read that much or I'm reading that quickly, I do get burnt out, usually around mid-year, and usually around like June or July, I usually read like 1 or 2 books. Honestly, like I'm reading stuff, but I only finish like 1 or 2 books. This year, however, it's been fairly consistent, and I have been reading anywhere between 6 to like 9 books a month. So I don't know what's been going on. I don't know if it's just a change in what I've been reading, but that's kind of what I've been seeing so far in my own personal reading trend. Question number 6 is, how do you feel about your reading goals? Anything you want to change, adjust, or abandon? I don't really set specific reading goals for myself. There are more general ones, like, I want to read more classics, I want to read more memoirs, things like that, but I don't have like a specific number per se. Well, I used to actually give myself a reading goal, like a reading number. As of like a year or 2 ago, I just picked 50 books because 50 books is comfortable, but I know I can surpass that also, like when I have years like this year where I've just been reading a ton. So I don't think I want to change anything, but I do think that it's going well. I think that, setting that goal of 50 for myself is good because there's no pressure behind it, and I don't ever want to feel pressure to read. There are just so many books that I want to read in my lifetime that I'm just pushing myself like to read more and read more, because there are just so many things that I want to read and so many books that I want to enjoy, and I wish that I could just like download books into my brain and just know them, because truly there are just so many books I want to read. So I don't think there's anything I want to change. I like how I do it. I like the reading goals that I set for myself. And I do think that, just generally focusing on always just being inclusive and, reading diversely and things like that in my reading are always important. But I don't think there's any like one specific goal that I have or that I would like to, retract or edit or anything like that. Question number 7, and the last question of this tag, is, have you started creating any reading goals for next year already? No, other than I hope I read 50 books next year. Other than that, there isn't really anything that I've set up for myself. I do think I want to continue down the path of reading more high fantasy and sci-fi. I definitely enjoy those genres. I do think I want to read more physical books or like digital books, like on my Kobo. I have listened to a lot of audiobooks this year, and I can feel the burnout of that kind of right now. I do enjoy listening to audiobooks while I'm driving and like doing other things, but I've been really in this mood right now of wanting to either immersive read, so listen while I'm physically reading, or just physically reading a book, whether that's on a physical book or on my Kobo, my e-reader. So I think that I'm gonna try more so to lean away from audiobooks next year. So I do anticipate reading less books than I did this year, just because I am a really slow reader, sadly. I'm like just snail slow, like it is sad. So I do like to immersive read a lot because it makes it easier for me to quickly read stuff but still getting the full experience of the book. However, like I said, I do kind of feel that burnout coming. So I do think right now from October to December, my reading is probably going to slow down a bit because I'm not going to be listening to as many audiobooks. But also next year, I kind of want to take a step back from audiobooks. These nuts. I want to take a step back from not audiobooks in like a total sense, but in just the amount, in the quantity. I know for a fact I've listened to more books than I physically read. So I want to kind of swap that and have it be either immersive or physically reading something more than I listen to the audiobook. So I think that's kind of the only thing that I'm anticipating or like setting myself up for next year. But otherwise, again, like I said, I've just been giving myself that goal of 50 books every year, and that's pretty much it. Those are all of the questions. I will have them in the description box below if you guys want to answer some of them or all of them in the comment section. And don't forget that if you liked this video, to like the video, comment, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos from me. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day or evening, and I hope you find some fantastic books to read for the end of the year.